Hello, home team GameDev Lighthouse. I'm Kyle Black, and this is your Week 14 update for VAM Empire. Good week this week. 23 commits across 2 contributors, bring us to a total of 470 commits with a lifetime contributor count of 13 people. With just 2 weeks to go now, that's pretty good. And in the art and visuals department, I added a pirate ship this week with a normal map to go along with it. Got a nice little skull on the back there. Pretty slow flying ship in game, and I had the mud digger missile to the front. Makes for a kind of a nice entry level enemy for the player to fight. That mud digger missile fires pretty slowly. It's easy to dodge, but if it does catch you off guard, it'll hit you pretty good. So I figure it's a good first enemy in the game for the player to encounter. In code, Nate kicked the week off by preventing the enemy quest indicators from rotating when they're on the mini-map and attached to a ship. So you don't see the little exclamation mark, rotating around on the mini-map anymore. That's great. I, on the other hand, did a whole lot of different things. We'll go through them more in the demo, but there's now procedural asteroid field generation. A whole lot of stuff went into doing that, involving mini-map enhancements and everything else. There's now dynamic enemies in the world, pirates and vampires, that don't spawn until the player gets close to them. There is a sleep state on the AI now, so if the player is too far from an enemy for it to really matter if it's patrolling something, it'll just stop in game world and not run the AI, so there's not this constant path finding going on enemies that might be way off screen. There's now some improvements to the missions. I've added the cash rewards. The player ship, if the player gets an upgraded ship, that will show in the home base now. It was just a placeholder sprite of the first starter ship sitting in the base. That little takeoff animation, that's just been a placeholder sprite. That's now coded to actually match the player ship, and the player ship is properly being tracked in the save file based on the ship hangar scene that we use to index the class and index of each ship. So that all will be able to tie into the merchant and everything else that we need to do to tie things up. So let's go over it all in the demo. So here we are in the Godot engine, and before I just jump into flying around in the game, I'm just going to go over some of how this is all put together here. And what we're looking at right here is what is shaping up to be the primary level of the game, where all the combat and missions and everything will take place. If we zoom way in here, this is the starting spot for the player, right down this little blue rectangle down here, and you can see that's the return home. May change that beacon to look like something more jump gate or something by the end, but if we keep that placeholder art for the end, that's fine too. I'm not super worried about it. But each one of these little rectangles here represents an asteroid field spawner, and they work by using, jump over to this bigger area 2D indicator, that when the player flies into this, asteroids spawn around this rectangle. Not exactly in this rectangle. It's more just as it was for me to eyeball about how far apart I needed to put the spawners into rows and columns and things like that. And on the rows themselves, or on the spawners themselves, you can set what minerals, by the UUID of the mineral, you can set what minerals will spawn in that asteroid field, and you can have multiple minerals. So some of these, as we go further out into the the deeper rows, you'll see I have still just one on that. Sometimes it's like gold. So I essentially went copper, iron, and I'm thinking about making a map for this for the player to be able to know about how far in they're going to have to go, and maybe add something to when you select asteroids. Maybe it'll tell you what's on it if you have a special scanner. But with 2 weeks to go, I don't know how much of that we're going to be able to get done. Some of that might be, for the sequel, so to speak. But this is where the early game missions, I'm going to drop most of the early game missions around here. Some of these circles you see are dynamically spawning pirates. So when the player gets close to one of these circles, a pirate will spawn. So it saves on resources, that these all won't be flying around all the time. We'll probably still have some flying around, just not this many necessarily. And then out here, a lot of these are vampire spawners. So that as you get out here, and this is where the vanadium is, or the vanadinite, spawns in these, or you can mine it out of this area. And some of the end game missions, of course, are all going to require getting Vanadinite and then figuring out where the final boss or base of the vampires are. And this is sort of where they're holding the line, so to speak, against the player. And it's going to be very difficult to fly around in here. You're going to need a more powerful ship to be able to handle the amount of vampires that are going to keep jumping out on you in that area of the world. So this is just what we're filling out, and you kind of just think of it as, you know, starting as like the newbie zone, the beginner area, making its way into more difficult territory until you're up at where the vampires are. So let's just jump in and take a look at it. I'll just start with a whole new save file, get the music going a little bit here. See missions now. I've kind of tidied up this screen a little bit. It makes it scroll now, but it at least doesn't cover these buttons on the bottom. Probably some more tweaking that can be done there. I still have these debug buttons here to make this easy so that we can skip right past like a newbie mission. And you can see my money went up. I've moved the in-game HUD into the base, just quick and dirty. I just moved the actual scene object so that it was real easy to do, and it was easier to troubleshoot that you were actually getting your reward, and it'll be easier for the player to see that they're earning money when they complete these missions. And sort of still dialing in what things are going to cost. But let's grab that, and we'll grab the stranded miner mission, and then we'll knock these two missions out as part of the demo here. And this is something I really want to work on getting wrapped up in the next week or so that we can buy the, go from the starter ship into the Mantis and then the mining barge. And then I might still make one last big ship for the player to fly for the final boss fight. We'll see how far we can get with that. And some of these buttons just might, the hangar might end up just being the merchant. This might be where you come to pilot your different ships based on which ones you own. The merchant might be the hangar, just to simplify things. And the inventory, we'll see if I bring that in here or not, because again, the only thing going in the inventory is these minerals. So the hangar and the inventory may just disappear, and it might just be missions, merchant, and embark. And then this is going to drastically change from these things to just sort of a, the embark button will likely point to the world, and this developer readme will disappear for the final release as well. Jump out into the world, try and tackle these missions. And the texture on this planet is another thing I want to finish up. That was sort of a quick and dirty texture I dropped on there. I want to finish that up. Now you can see, if I zoom out, you can see where the missions are. And I think I'm going to limit just how far out you can zoom. I think 50 is too much, because now you can actually see the limits of my dynamic asteroid spawning. So my thinking is the maximum zoom out will be somewhere around where the asteroids spawn, so maybe like 16, or so that it won't be so obvious how that's working. Now, of course, the explanation for that could be that's as far as your radar can pick up asteroids or something, but and the way the dynamic spawning works is the asteroids will get denser the further away from start point. So the further up on screen orientation that you go, the denser the asteroids will get. Now you heard a pirate there. Oh, just cracked right into him. Now you can see he's pretty easy to get away from, but still a threat. And it kind of gives the player a chance to use the little pea shooter that they start with, learn how to fly and shoot. Oh, they got me. Got me twice. I'm going to charge up. I'm going to fix that up as well, so that you don't get a string of -1s, since that's the way we're healing. We're just dropping -1 health into the damage function to heal. Just doing the opposite. Another pirate. Now we've completed the Earn Your Stripes mission, and now we just need to find the stranded miner. And I believe another pirate right here. Yep. might make a different indicator for stationary missions versus enemy missions to make it easier to figure out which one I'm flying at here. And here's the mission. And right now it's just a placeholder sprite still, but gonna put some little set piece here to show, you know, the stranded miner, and then maybe have a little animation of their little escape pod or something coming out and getting in the player's ship, and then you'll take them home. I've just caught here that there's a bug that it reset my kill count back to 1. Let's see if it goes to 2. Yeah. Here we are back in base with our 2 missions complete. 65,000 credits, yeah. And the stranded miner take me up to 105,000 credits. And you know, we can kind of decide how much that mana ship should cost, how many missions, and how many minerals we think the player will need to mine and complete to afford that first big upgrade. And do a little more play testing like I just did right there live. Make sure all these things work. Figure out why the earn your stripes kill count reset when I killed a 4th enemy. It took me to 1 out of 3 kills, so I gotta put some handling into that. And yeah, it's just adding more of these missions, getting the merchant working, and adding the final missions to go fight the vampire boss at the end, and then building the vampire boss itself. And that's about what we have left to wrap up in the game. That was a bit of a longer demo today, and I really kind of covered where we have to go a good bit already. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but big things to finish up are the final boss encounter, the merchant. You know, this is one of those things. I'm just going to move this over here. If I get to it, I get to it. I believe Nate's been working on that. This might be something we can drop in at the very end here. Just an opening mission that might kind of give the background on why the vampires are here. Maybe we start in the strongest ship and get knocked down to, you know, sort of the origin story thing where you start in a strong ship. Maybe we could make a very early mission like that. We'll see. I'll just put this critical path out here. Might still be nice to get a ship engine sound in the game, and any additional options that make it. But you know, these warm-up tasks, there's always room for more assets and stuff for anybody that wants to try and contribute right here at the end. It's fine. But 2 solid weeks left. I'm hoping to have as productive as a week as I had this week again, and 2 more weeks like this week, and I think we're going to be good as long as my my personal non-game dev life stays stable for the following 2 weeks. I think we're going to be great, and would love the help from anybody else that wants to jump in here. Plenty of time to get some good commits in. And then we can put all our full focus onto Arrow Junkers once this game wraps after the 25th. So see y'all in the Discord.